Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started. Thank you for joining us this evening to talk about your personal economic system, abundance, and regeneration. My name is Patty Love, and I would like to welcome you here to this free webinar, which is an activity of the Earth Activists Online. My role in the organization is that I teach the Regenerative Business Design course that is part of the Regenerative Land Management Program, and it's also open to anyone. Additionally, I am the business coach for the Maven Makers group. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. I'm so appreciative that you are valuing this event to be here tonight with us. Also, I want to offer my gratitude to the Earth Activists Online community, the team members who helped this happen, Starhawk, who recorded a meditation for us. You'll hear about that later. Charles Williams, Mariah, and Elizabeth all contributed to making this event possible tonight. So I feel a lot of gratitude for them. Before we go into the content of the program, I would like to acknowledge the original stewards of the land where I live, land that's now called New York, specifically Rochester, New York, and land that is the traditional homelands of the Haudenosaunee Nation, especially the Onondaga or Seneca peoples who have stewarded this land from time immemorial. Our goals for this presentation are to talk about what a personal economic system is, to define regenerative, to look at some regenerative possibilities for lifestyles and communities, livelihoods or businesses, and also for some organizations. We also have a meditation with Starhawk that may lead you to discover some regenerative path work for yourself. So this is one example we have for defining what our human needs are. We have these basic needs of the physiological needs and our needs for safety, and then we have the psychological needs for belonging and love and feeling good about ourselves, and then the self-fulfillment needs. And I would say that when we live in regenerative ways, when we work in a regenerative business, that it's really possible and perhaps essential that all of these needs are being met, kind of by definition of what a regenerative business is, or living in a regenerative way. Here's a model maybe for thinking about what your personal economic system is. In order to get those needs met, your needs for food and clothing, or as Dave Jackie puts the human needs, food, fiber, fodder, fun, pharmaceuticals, fertilizer. I think, did I get them all? So how do we meet those needs? We might sometimes think about meeting those needs by purchasing things to meet our needs, but there are lots of other ways that we can get those needs met. We can produce and make things that we need to have to live, growing our own food, making our own clothing, perhaps even growing fiber and turning it into cloth, and then knitting or sewing our own clothing. We can also barter and trade and forage and receive gifts, and then perhaps we're able to manifest some of our things, and some of our needs get met by some of the great mysteries of life. When we think about our personal economic system and how we meet our needs, it's important to remember that we're very limited by time. We have this construct of 24 hours in a day, and we're also limited by our energy. Those are real limits. Some folks might say, well, we're also limited by the money that we have. And while that's true, we can, generally speaking, earn more money if we need to, or make something of value. However, we really can't make more time or make more energy. We can do things that keep our energy up, but we can't make more. So as you think about your personal economic system and what that means, I would urge you to consider these various ways of meeting your needs. And maybe there's some changes that you can make to help you have more abundance and not be purchasing as many things. I also want to talk about what regenerative means. So regenerative, to me, is an intentional focus on systems thinking, where we're trying to protect, restore, and replenish both the human capital and the natural resources. So where folks are thinking about and doing things to take care of the humans, and also to replenish, restore natural resources around them. Regenerative living or regenerative working also means that we might be making things better than we found them. Now, we're limited by the human ego to think about what better is, but we can make things better than we found them. Also, we want to think about giving back more than we take in a regenerative system. And remember that regenerative means that there's abundance for everyone. So it also includes anti-racism work and climate justice work. And this idea of regeneration is built into permaculture, or which is also called regenerative design, where we are using information and observation that's derived from the observation of indigenous practices of nature stewardship and natural ecological systems of relationships, so that we're repairing and creating regenerative and reciprocal systems for meeting human needs and making the quality of life better for all beings, plants, insects, fungi, non-human animals. Also, in a regenerative lifestyle or a regenerative business, any amount of regeneration includes these ethics that come to us from permaculture as well, of earth care, people care, and resource share. And as Starhawk tells us with her permaculture principles, everything is connected. So we have unlimited creativity, and that's how we can design regenerative systems. If you've read Starhawk's book, The Earth Path, there's a passage where she talks about making choices. We move from making choices into choosing our values that are based on what is sacred to each of us. And so as we're taking action, we're asking questions. We're asking ourselves this question: how does this action or decision impact the whole, the entire community? And we've had this example over the last 3 years of, with the COVID pandemic, of taking into account the consideration of physical distancing to help keep other folks from getting sick, or do we do business as usual? So sometimes in order to bring more regeneration into our life, into our personal economy, we need to do some reevaluation so that we're thinking about our values. I also think of regenerative design as design for how we do what we do every day. So where do you work in relation to where you sleep? Where do you sleep in relation to where you use resources? Where are you buying from? Are you buying locally? Are you shopping online? Are you buying from a local farmer? Are you doing business with your local bookstore? All of these things are part of regenerative living at the personal level. Part of a regenerative lifestyle and having a sense of abundance is based in the foundation of self-care, where we treat ourselves with love, we get good amount of sleep, we have good nutrition, we get exercise, and take some time out for relaxation, which might include a cup of tea. So this foundation of self-care is most definitely part of regenerative lifestyle and giving you that strong economy, your personal economy. And I've heard a saying that you'll never treat anyone better than you treat yourself. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I do think that when we give ourselves good self-care, it really helps us make sure that we are bringing that thinking to everything that we do, including our work. So we can also think about our regenerative lifestyle. Where I live in a para-urban environment just outside the edge of the city. So a place where there's a little bit more land around me. And part of the regenerative lifestyle and my personal economy being abundant is that I grow a lot of food in my yard, and even in the front yard where I have it look a little bit more traditional, that bed is filled with foods like gooseberries and blackberries and pawpaws. There's nasturtium in there. I also have some medicines with comfrey and St. John's wort and New Jersey tea. So as we're thinking about our own personal lifestyle, sometimes that means that we are living where we're gardening is our landscaping. And this slide should have come first. Somehow it skipped over. But what part of regenerative living and having an abundant economy can include homesteading. And that doesn't mean that I have to make everything that I use. But the focus is on being a producer instead of a consumer. And as part of that lifestyle, in addition to growing food from home, I'm also trying to work from home. And I do things like collect rooftop rainwater. And these are some kind of basic ideas that many of you are probably already doing. But this lifestyle of homesteading is one way where we can have an abundant personal economy because we're providing for ourselves. We're not needing as much money to buy things from other people. And as we're growing not only in our traditional landscaping, we might also use the food forest garden model to generate a lot of food. And rather we have a large yard or a small yard or even a container, we can use this model of food forest gardening where we're gardening like the forest, using the different layers and growing a lot of food in a relatively small amount of space. And this gives us some resiliency because there's a lot of different foods growing there. And, you know, if one year like this year, I didn't even have that many aronia because the drought was pretty major here. And usually aronia is something I'm just overrun with. But when we have a lot of different species and ecosystem diversity in a food forest garden, whether it's, you know, one apple tree and some plants underneath it or something a little bit bigger. My garden happens to be about 1/10 of an acre. We can produce some food at home. And this is also possible to do in container gardens or in the space between the sidewalk and the road. Lots of places to grow food. Also in my homesteading lifestyle, I do some work where I'm telecommuting, just like speaking to you right now. So one of the things that I do is teach the regenerative business design course for the Earth Activists online community. And we have a new course coming up starting January 23rd, which is a couple of weeks from now. In this 8-week class, we do kind of a business 101 course, like the basics of getting a business started. Plus, we also talk about ways to design your business so that it is regenerative in as many aspects as possible. And the other thing that I do is I coach the Maven Makers group, which is a group of business owners, and we meet twice a week, once as a group and once individually. And I will be doing a free group session for new members on January 24th. So those are some of the things that I do in my life in terms of my own personal economy. And I have some other examples for you. There's so many wonderful examples. There's a group of folks in Syracuse, which is down the road from me, the land now known as Syracuse. And this is called the Bitternut Collective. It's an urban house that used to be vacant. It's been rehabbed using low input strategies. For example, replacing broken window glass, but keeping the original frames. They did a lot of the work by hand. It's not tied to the natural gas line. It's partially solar powered. The folks who live at the home agree to eat locally, mostly vegan, and also are opportunivores. Oops, I think I might have spelled that wrong. Meaning that they might be gathering food, some doing what's called dumpster diving, or finding other food that's underutilized to feed themselves. They also have community potlucks, and the group of folks who live there agree to work in a consensus-based model for making decisions about things that happen in the house, or improvements or that sort of thing. They also share housing expenses like utilities and some upkeep for the house. And they're really active transportation. So using bicycles, walking to get around town. They're, pretty centrally located. And I can see, I see the note in the chat. Trying to do many things at one time. So yes, I'm sorry that you're not able to see the Bitter Nut Collective, but you can find them on Facebook. You can also find them on Instagram. And if you go to Intentional Communities website, ic.org, you can search in the directory and find Bitter Nut Collective. So I can put that in the chat window. Also, I know one of the people who lives in this house, his name is Frank Cetera, and he works with the Onondaga County Small Business Development Council, I think it is, SBDC, and educates folks about collectives. Additionally, Frank and some other folks have installed a perennial food forest garden and health clinic that's a few blocks away from where the Bitter Nut Collective is. So they are not only engaged in regenerative living in their house, they're also bringing that to the community. So they're growing food, some of the food at their house. They operate this food forest garden that anyone can harvest from. And these are some of the ways that they're having a more regenerative lifestyle for themselves. You know, in addition to sharing house chores and all of those things that that taking care of a house requires. So intentional community is an example of how we can live in more regenerative ways. There's another example called Earth Haven Eco Village. And this is a larger, different site because it's out in outside of Asheville on 329 acres and the land now known as North Carolina. I visited there a little over a decade ago. And it was really exciting to see this intentional community that's being built that's based in permaculture. They use something called modified end street consensus to make decisions in the community. Right now, there's something like 100 people living there, and they're hoping to have maybe up to 300 when they're feeling full. So it's a really interesting place where they do a lot of living in harmony with nature, doing rainwater management, so catching rooftop water, redirecting it. They've built and dug ponds across the landscape. They have a trout pond. They also have this micro hydro system that you can see in one of the pictures. They actually have 2 micro hydro systems set up on the land where they're using the energy of the water that naturally flows across the landscape and turning that into some power for their community, which is off grid. And they also are solar powered primarily. Either micro hydro or solar takes care of most of the power that they're using in the community. They use natural building. There's all kinds of reclaimed materials, cob building. You can see in the lower picture, this was I think a 10 by 10 building that was just beautiful. And it had these upcycled windows, and then it had some bottles in the wall, just gorgeous, in the straw bale and cob building. Additionally, at Earth Haven, folks who live there make a community investment in new buildings. So they try to have a really circular economy in terms of if somebody new is coming in, or the family's growing and they want to build another or residence where community members would come together to help to make that happen financially. They do try to use local materials for building, and again, use materials that are upcycled. They also are really working at having a village scale economy of ecological businesses and some telecommuting work. So, for example, there is a nursery business that's run at Earth Haven. There is a person who has a book and advises on intentional communities. There are some folks who are builders there who have a business building with natural materials. So that helps to also have the an economy that's regenerative. It's nice to think that we could just trade and barter and gift, and that would take care of and grow, produce, and that would meet all of our needs. But there are some things that money comes really in handy for. If we are trying to pay for a bicycle or a vehicle, or to have to buy some of the materials for building a house, we need money to do that. So they are working there to develop this village economy. They also require annual community service from all of their members. They have a certain number of hours that they require that gives back to projects and maintenance and new initiatives that are happening in the community. And it probably isn't surprising to you that there are multiple farms and gardens that are part of Earth Haven Eco Village. I think there were 4 farms, and then many people have gardens, and there's a community gardens section of the land there. So if you want to check them out, you can look at their website and get more information. This is, I think, a really fabulous example of regenerative living in terms of communities. We also want to think about regeneration when it comes to businesses, whether it's that nursery or the construction business, or some sort of telecommuting kind of business that you have. When we think about regeneration, we can think about trying to find this sweet spot of business. And I'm spelling business with this capital E in the middle because thinking about it being really earth-centered. So when we get this sweet spot where self and other people thrive, and there's earth care, and the business effortlessly overlap, when all of those things come together, this planet, people, and profit, that's where we can really thrive and really be living and working regeneratively. And there are so many opportunities for doing that in business. This is the regenerative design process that I teach in the regenerative business design course. And there's so many different ways to bring regeneration into each step of how we design a business, how we do things in the business. It's really helpful to bring this mindset of both and thinking. We think about the network pattern, or a spider web might be how you envision a network pattern. We can think about kind of shift our thinking about business, where it's very individual oriented, to where it becomes really integrated, that's with a capital IN, to where it's business with that capital E, where it's earth loving and it's for everyone. When we are really doing a good job of bringing as much regeneration as possible to our businesses. It also creates a real sense of abundance when you have this thriving triple bottom line of people, profit, and planet. So one way to think about regenerative business is to think about any business and how your business does what it does every day. So in the supply chain, like, who do you do business with? Are you getting your business cards printed at some cheap online place where they might even be coming from China, if you can believe that? Or do you go to your local printer where it might cost you a little bit more, but you're supporting a local business? Where do you do your banking? Are you working with the local credit union, for example, as opposed to an online bank or one of the gigantic banks? Through your whole supply chain, you can look for opportunities to work with people who pay fair wages, who maybe are fair trade certified, so that you are supporting regenerative systems and walking your talk. And then the bonus of that is, besides your own sense of integrity and abundance and thriving, is that you have a selling point for your business. You can have that be part of your brand for your business when you are bringing regeneration into your business. And even if you're a small business, you can do things like a voluntary land tax to the local indigenous community, or paying reparations. We're going to hear more about Soul Fire Farm in just a minute. You can give a percentage of your profits to a local not-for-profit that does anti-racism work. You can also buy from locally owned businesses that are owned by BIPOC folks or are women owned. You can do things like participating in local currencies and time banks. So even a small business can take regenerative action. And in this presentation, I'm trying to give you examples of both small scale businesses and communities and larger scale business and communities. Of course, your business has to be financially viable to stay in business, and this is part of being regenerative. So even if you are embracing those values of people, profit, and planet, you do have to at least break even or generate a profit so that you can keep operating your business. And sometimes when folks are really anti-capitalism, they're thinking about, there's a sense of aversion to money sometimes, or aversion to profit. And profit can be a good thing. Again, if you're using right actions as you're building your business, the more profit you have, the more money you have that you can direct towards other regenerative activities. So, do consider that if you tend to think that it's a bad thing to make a good profit in a business. So regenerative businesses. I was really happy to see that this business is still operating. One of my permaculture teachers and friends, Lisa DiPiano, was part of the Pedal people. And this has been operating since 2002 in Northampton, Massachusetts, which is in the western part of the state. So Pedal People is a worker-owned human-powered delivery and hauling service. So by bicycle, they haul trash, recycling, and compost, and they've even had a contract with the city of Northampton since, I think, 2009, 2007. Sorry, I don't remember the exact date. So for quite a while, they have even had a contract with the city. I mean, that's, how good of a job they're doing and how reliable they are. And not only do they haul recycling and trash and compost, but they will actually haul anything. If you have an envelope you want delivered, groceries, couches, they help people move, anything that can be pulled by bicycle, the Pedal People do. They also have a lawn care business that is, they use either human-powered or electrical equipment. And they also offer a free weekly bike lab to the community. So without talking with them, I would imagine that the lawn care work helps kind of balance out and keep people working when maybe there isn't stuff to move or whatever. It's some diversity in their income stream. One of the features that I noticed, because they do have a couple job openings, is that they try to pay a living wage. So workers are paid by the job, but it works out to be no less than $16.50 an hour as their minimum. That is their minimum wage. And so when somebody starts working with them, they can be earning between $16.50 an hour to $25 an hour, and then it can go up over time. So this is a cooperatively owned business, and it's been in business for 20 years. And this has so many levels of regeneration to it, that I think it's a really fabulous example of regenerative business and trying to create a regenerative economy. And the pedal people is a, kind of a relatively small size business. Then there are some even larger businesses that are examples. And maybe if you have ever shopped with your local food co-op, they might be a member of the National Co-op Grocers. So one of the aspects of National Co-op Grocers, besides being a cooperative, besides doing business with other cooperatives, is that they have advocacy areas that they work in. As a much larger organization, much larger business, they have some money and some resources where they can work on supporting other cooperative businesses, inclusive economies, so that everyone has a chance to thrive. They also work on racial equity and food justice, supporting local food and farming, organic certification, climate action, environmental responsibility. So larger organizations, which if you started a business, it might stay on the smaller side, like pedal people, and you might end up with a very large national or international business, something the size of National Co-op Grocers. And there are so many opportunities, regardless of the scale of the business, to keep it being regenerative. Everything from the people care and how you treat your employees or worker owners, to how you engage with the community, doing climate justice or anti-racism work. And if you're interested in this idea of worker cooperatives, one of the organizations, and there are several, but one of the organizations that where you can find worker cooperatives and also find out more information, they have a lot of resources and stuff to share, is this U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives. And thank you. I see that we have a very helpful person who is putting the web pages in the chat window. Thanks so much for doing that. So this website, usworker.coop, has a searchable directory where you can go in and, based on various criteria, find cooperatives near you. So I wanted to include this because if you're thinking about starting a cooperative, this is one place that has a resource. And it also is a great place if you're looking for other cooperative businesses that you might support or work with. This is a good resource for you. Another example of a larger business that has a lot of regenerative qualities to it is this company called Galant International. Part of the reason that I ended up finding them was when I teach the regenerative business design course, I talk a lot about this mythical t-shirt business because it's just something that many, many people can relate to. So there is actually a very regenerative t-shirt business, and this is an example. So the mission of Galant International is to help corporates here we might say corporations, brands and nonprofits on their sustainable journey by supplying organic, regenerative organic, and fair trade certified cotton products. So the t-shirts, the aprons, the tote bags, the muslin drawstring bags are made from cotton that is produced organically, regeneratively, and is fair trade certified. Additionally, in terms of regenerative business, they're bringing in a transparent supply chain that is fully traceable. And then they have measurable impact data for all kinds of criteria in terms of how their goods are produced. Additionally, Gallant International is a certified B Corporation, which so a B Corporation is different from your traditional C Corp. So if you think about when we hear about large corporations, they're usually what is called a C Corp, and they are legally required to maximize their profit for their shareholders. And we can think of all kinds of examples where that causes problems, right? And means that people are not necessarily being the best earth stewards or thinking about that. But with B Corps, they are legally required to meet a set of criteria that addresses people, profit, and the planet. The certification is an optional requirement. B corporations are not recognized in every state in this land that's called the United States now. I think there are about 30 states that do recognize B Corps, but having a B Corp, if you're starting a business, is another way to create a regenerative business. And thanks for all of your questions. Sorry, it's a little tricky to run all the tech and present the information. So another way we can think about regeneration is with organizations. So Soul Fire Farm is a 501c3 organization, or a registered not-for-profit organization. And Soul Fire Farm is located on the eastern side of what's now known as New York State. And Soul Fire Farm is an Afro-Indigenous centered community farm that's committed to uprooting racism and ceding sovereignty in the food system. At Soul Fire Farm, they raise and distribute life-giving food as a means to end food apartheid. So the farmers there are using the CSA model to as one of the ways that they're sharing food with the community. And they do have free delivery of what are called solidarity shares. So shares where folks do not have to pay, or maybe are paying a reduced amount. Another example of how they are bringing regeneration into their business is that their farm buildings are hand constructed, and they use local lumber and other local materials in addition to reclaimed materials. Another reason that I wanted to tell you about Soul Fire Farm as a regenerative organization is that they have also attained this food justice certification that is offered by the Agricultural Justice Project. And full disclosure, I do some work for the Agricultural Justice Project as well. And that food justice certification looks at how the farmers are treated, how the whole supply chain is treated, so that people are well cared for and paid good living wages, among many other considerations. So that's, I think, a good example of an organization that really models regeneration. So we are going to get to Starhawk's meditation in just a minute and some questions. I will look in the chat window. But this was a very quick presentation on abundance and regeneration in your personal economic system. And it is being recorded and will be available to anyone who has registered. I know some people came in late and missed some things in the beginning where we were talking about personal economic system. We defined what regenerative means, and then we went through some regenerative possibilities for lifestyles, communities, livelihoods, and businesses and organizations. So the next thing that we're going to do is to have Starhawk's recorded meditation. Starhawk and Charles and probably some other folks are teaching a PDC in California right now and having some really rough weather, power outages, and that sort of thing. So Starhawk was kind enough to record a meditation for us, knowing that she might not have power internet access where she is. So if you take a moment to get comfortable and settle in the body, allowing it to sink in, and we'll listen to Starhawk.
Hi, everybody. I was so hoping to be live on Patty's webinar tonight, but we are up here in the midst of major storms and atmospheric rivers, and power keeps going out, internet keeps going out. So I'm going to pre-record this meditation for you. So you'll have something regardless of what's happening with us up here. So I want to recommend you take a breath. Just settle in, breathe in, breathe out, put your feet on the ground. We're going to start with a little grounding. Just notice how your body is sitting and breathing, where the weight is in your body. You can imagine you've got roots that go into the earth, down through your feet, down through the base of your spine. As you breathe in and breathe out, imagine that they push down through rock and sand and gravel, down through the waters under the earth, down to that heart of fire at the core of the earth. And as you breathe in, breathe out, just imagine you can release down into that fire. And taking another breath, draw some of that energy up from that fire, up through those roots. All the way up through all those layers of soil and rock and gravel. Up into the base of your spine, up your spine, like your spine was a nice flexible tree trunk growing up. Up and out the top of your head like branches, and feel them reach up to the sky, sweep back down, touch the earth again. Feel the sunlight on your leaves and branches. Take a deep breath, draw them in, draw them down. As you feel that energy coming up and through you and down and through you, just let yourself realize that we all have access to this infinite source of energy. Really, two infinite sources. There's that earth energy that's still like the heat of the earth. It's still hot from the earth's formation. And there's that sky energy, energy of sun, of stars, of moonlight. You can breathe that in and breathe that out. And know that we never have to feel a sense of scarcity because we always have that infinite energy. It's a matter of just stilling ourselves, tuning in, allowing it to flow. Take a deep breath in. And hold it for a moment. Just allow it to really fill your lungs, filter in, and then release it. And when you release it, push it out as far as you can go. Use your diaphragm. And then breathe in. And you feel that sense of relief when you allow yourself to take in. As you breathe in and as you hold it, do you feel that sense of fullness? Actually, the fullness actually turns to lack if you hold it too long. And that relief when you let it go. And just take a moment and let yourself breathe in, hold it, and breathe out. Push it fully out. Feel that abundance that's there for us in the air, our primary need, our primary resource, the oxygen that fuels everything in our bodies, and how it's always there for us. It's always around. They haven't figured out yet how to charge us for it, right? And as you breathe in and as you breathe out, just imagine how it would feel in your life if all of those other sources of energy, including those ones we call money, flowed in and flowed out as smoothly and as easily regulated as breath. You know, holding on to too much of it, being afraid to let it go, creates a lack. Pushing out too much of it, not allowing yourself take in, creates a lack. But allowing it to flow in and flow out and remain there enough to give you the nurturing and the energy you need, that creates abundance. Breathing in and breathing out, let's just say a moment of gratitude. Take a moment and just think about 5 things that you are grateful for in your life right now. I often find that when I'm starting to feel panicked or scarcity or whatever, just stopping and thinking about the things I am grateful for will put me in a different, more receptive state. All right. Well, thank you all. And Patty, I hope all of this goes wonderfully well. And if we do have power, I'll try to tune in. But if not, you'll have this. Thank you all. Bye.
And while you're in that place of being grounded from Starhawk's meditation, I would encourage you to think about the conversation that we've had about regeneration and your personal economy. And maybe think for a moment about one or two ways that you could bring some more regenerative living into your days. And then to consider one or two ways where you might bring regeneration into how you interact in the economy around you. And then just releasing another deep breath and letting go of meditation, knowing that you can come back to this meditation at any time if you like. We will have some time for questions. And while you think about if you have a question to put in the chat window, I'm going to read and address a question that was sent in by somebody registering for the event tonight. The question is, what about when you are low energy or in a long-term situation, for example, caregiving, that generates a significant amount of strain, emotional, mental, physical, and requires substantial time and commitment? So I'm not exactly sure that like the scope that that this person was asking me to address. And I can say I'm living that right now. I am in a caregiving situation, and what I would recommend is to think about that slide with the self-care. Even when we're in an intense time where there are a lot of demands on our time, and there might be some intensity in terms of caring for someone, we really have to care for ourselves as best we can. So maybe all you can do for regenerative living, if you're in an intense situation like a caregiving situation, is to have 5 minutes a day where you take a few deep breaths, maybe make yourself a cup of tea, do a couple of stretches, or whatever else would be among your priorities for self-care. Remembering to eat good food, get enough sleep, get some exercise, spend time with people you love and who love you, and to give yourself some self-care. That's my thought about having abundance and regeneration in our personal economy, even in difficult times. And I'm wondering if anybody else has a question that's related to this topic of abundance and regeneration in our personal economic systems. And you'll have another minute for questions. Before we go, I want to have the opportunity to thank everyone for being here, to thank Starhawk for taking the time to record that meditation, and for the entire Earth Activist team. Also to remind you that we do have the Regenerative Business Design course coming up on January 23rd that runs for 8 weeks. And on January 24th, you have an opportunity to have a free group coaching experience with the Maven makers. So those things are coming up. So one of the questions is, have I lived in an eco village myself? No, I have not lived in an eco village. But it's one of the things that I've thought about doing, and I was really so excited when I got to go to visit at Earth Haven when I happen to be in Asheville for something else. So I will tell you also that I have one of my very dear friends has lived in an eco-village, and that eco-village really emphasized very simple living. And I would say that they didn't really have all of the personal dynamics worked out. So I'm not going to tell you which one it is, but so that's something to think about. If a lot of times we can idealize that an eco-village is going to be a fabulous place, and it's a fabulous place if it's also run really well and that the personal relationships are taken care of, and there's a lot of regenerative relationships among people. That's something definitely, if you're thinking about an eco-village, to spend a lot of time visiting and talking with other people who live there. So switching over to questions, Maven Makers, and so the free Maven Makers group session is for anyone to sign up. And our usual Maven Makers folks will not be there. But you'll have the experience of what a Maven Makers group coaching session is. And so the Maven Makers program is a program where you sign up, and each month you get one 90-minute group coaching session. We limit the group to 6 people so that everybody has time to get some support during that group coaching session. And then in addition to that 90-minute group meeting, you also have a one-with-one meeting with me for 60 minutes. And that happens each month. 90 minutes of group coaching, 60 minutes of one-with-one individual coaching. And that is offered through the Earth Activist website. You can find out more information about the Maven Makers program. And let's see, a link to the event. I'm sorry that it looks like somebody didn't get a link to the Zoom for tonight. I'm really sorry about that. This is being recorded, so you can also watch it later. The Maven Makers free event is listed in the Earth Activist online in the events. And yes, the Maven Makers is one of my busynesses. Let's see, another question. Are there other Maven Makers, or am I the one and only? So Maven Makers is the name of the group. Sometimes group coaching groups are called like masterminds. I do not like that name. So Maven Makers is the name of the group. And the group that we have going right now has between 3 and 4 people in it on a regular basis. And they are, at present, we have all women business owners in the Maven Makers group. I think I have answered all the questions that I see so far. Does anybody else have another question? All right, well, I see we're a little bit past our time, so thank you again for being here. You are very welcome to reach out to me through the Earth Activist Online Network on there as well. And I look forward to, and I see some familiar names on here tonight. Thank you for being here. I look forward to meeting some more of you at something soon. Thank you so much.